This is the In Focus podcast from The Hindu.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the In Focus podcast. I'm your host G. Sampath. India has made chess history by winning the 2 team golds at the Budapest Olympiad. The Olympiad is the biggest team event in global chess with a staggering 193 teams in the open section and 181 women's teams. In the open section, the Indian men's team of D Gukesh, R Praggnanandha, Arjun Erigaisi, Vidit, Gujrathi and P Harikrishna were so dominant they finished a good 4 points clear of the US, which had also very strong players. The Indian women's route to the team gold was much tighter and closer. They had to win their match on the final day also, which they did. So what do these team goals mean for India? What went into this historic achievement and how can India build on this success? To tell us more about what is being described as the golden generation of Indian chess, we are joined by Rakesh Rao, former deputy editor with the Hindu's Sports Bureau. Rakesh, welcome back to InFocus. So great to have you back.
Thank you so much for the opportunities, Sampath. It's always good to be back. And also, here we are for a very special reason. So that adds to my excitement.
Great. Wonderful. So to start with, Rakesh, I was just wondering, a slightly technical note to start on, like what strategy did India adopt, say, compared to last year, where we came pretty close as well in the previous Olympiad, to be able to manage the goals in both the open section and the women's competition this year? What was the difference between the last Olympiad and this one in terms of strategy and general approach to the tournament?
See, number one, last time when we were the host, we could host more than one team. So in order to get the balance right, we had 2 teams, which were considered to be, the ones which were considered of equal strength, which was not exactly true, because we had team A, we had team B, and then we had team C. So team A and B, if you look at these 2 teams, what really happened was Arjun Erigaisi, who was still a very strong player, he was not part of the team B, which appeared stronger, which had Pragg and Gukesh and all. So this time we were out of it because we were not hosts, so we could field our best team. Best team in terms of rating. If we were to go purely by rating, then Viswanathan Anand should have been part of the team. He would have been the 4th playing member of the team, with Harikrishna following later.
So last time when we were hosting, so if we had gone with just one strong team which had all the top players instead of 3 teams, do you think we would have won it?
We would have been seeded higher. Number one. And the way Arjun played for team A, which eventually finished 4th, not many people care to remember that because we only remember the top 3. They came 4th. So team B was 3rd, team B was 4th. The point is that if you field your best team, obviously you have the best chance. But last time we almost won the gold, in spite of Arjun not being in team B, which was considered the stronger by the chess fraternity, not by those who were just watching the game saying, okay, team A is supposed to be stronger than B. But in this and in that particular case, the cutting edge which team B had, that actually proved itself. So last time we won 2 bronze medals, again historic in the sense that this was the first time that India returned with 2 team medals. And now if that is the background, now you see what happened. Those 2 years, in spite of the fact that on the day that we won in Chennai, we were given those medals and all, but there was this, people were not, the players in particular were not happy. They said we could have finished better and we deserved to be there slightly higher on the podium there. But what really happened was, since then, I think there's this desire has been there, it's been burning well inside a lot of these individuals. And that, I think, probably in 25 months, what we saw, it had taken shape. And N. Srinath, the coach of the team, the coach of the men's team here, he took a gamble in the sense, he said, because if you go purely by world rankings and ratings, it should have been Arjun Erigaisi 1, Gukesh 2, Praggnanandha 3. And 4th, of course, was Vidit. But what he did, he said, let Gukesh move from 2 to 1, let Pragg move from 3 to 2, and Arjun comes down from 1 to 3. So he brought Arjun from, India's strongest player in the world was playing on board number 3. So that also helped in the sense that, the way Gukesh was dealing with the elite, he could deal with all those names very easily, because if you're playing on board number one, you play with the best in the, like he could have played Magnus Carlsen. He did play Caruana, two of those who were ranked higher than him. And Arjun, everybody knew that if he gets a good start, then he will just kill the opposition, because he wouldn't play opposition of that strength which Gukesh was likely to play. And Gukesh is much more confident playing higher up there, because he gets more opportunities to play in these elite tournaments. Arjun, for whatever reason, hasn't got as many opportunities as Pragg and Gukesh. So there was a psychological trick there, which actually worked. Now, with Vidit coming on board number 4, imagine Vidit, like not so long ago, he was India number 2, right behind Vishwanathan Anand. And within a year and a half, we have seen this dramatic change in world rankings and individual ratings. And that is probably the reason, because I think board number 1, 2, 3 were pretty strong. But I think Arjun not playing on board number 1 and playing on board number 3 was one of the key factors. Among the ladies, if you see, Humpy was absent. So this team wasn't as that strong, as we saw it last time around. But what we saw is that since August of 2022, Vaishali has emerged as a very different sort of a player. We all remember the way she played in the candidate. She lost 4 on the trot, won the last 5. Absolutely brilliant comeback. Then Vantika has evolved a lot as a player. Tanya doesn't play as much, but she's still very solid.
I mean, as an outsider to the chess world, I've seen Tanya more as a chess commentator. Is she doing more of commentating?
No, that is very recent. That is very recent. I mean, she's had a career of close to 30 odd years. I mean, she's been playing ever since she was 6 years old. So she's had a glorious career. She's been a former Asian champion, and last Olympiad she won a medal. But she's got these from the Olympiad. She has won individual world prizes in the past. So she's had a good record. She's a good team player. And it's only in the recent times that, since this COVID thing happened, and then thereafter, she got opportunities to do commentary, and she has done a wonderful job there too. So for both Peter Liko, who was representing, Hungary, and Tanya, who have shared the microphone in the last 2 years, we have seen them a lot. They were representing their respective countries. So from players to being commentators to being players again. So that was quite something for them. But coming back to your question, the women's team, again, they were seeded number 1 for the simple reason China did not field its top 4 players. So they came with virtually their B team. If they had fielded their best team, Indians wouldn't have been the top seeds.
I mean, any reason or speculation as to why China did not send its top players? I mean, it's supposed to be the most prestigious event.
Because see, Hanjuan, their top player, if you see, for example, 2 of the players are getting ready to play in the World Championship. And they have one world number 1 who doesn't play very often. Hao Yufan is not very regular. So she does play in a few events here and there, but she's not very regular. But then that left them with a rather weak team. So China wasn't the same force. Then if you look at Ukraine, they didn't have the 2 sisters there. And of course, the absence of Russia, one big reason. So a lot of factors were there. But then again, I maintain that it is not India's problems if the teams are not participating or they're not sending their best. We were top seeds. We were there to finish the job. And I think the girls did a fantastic job.
Right. Now, you were talking about Arjun Erigaisi being the number 1 player in terms of rating, but he played on board 3. Like, how would you assess his performance? Was he basically having to deal with weaker opponents that explains his ability to perform, or was it some other factors at play?
Arjun is a very strong player. Make no mistake, he's currently world number 3 on live rankings. So he's got something up there. And if you look at the way he played, the kind of opposition which he faced, trust me, it was still amazing. I mean, see, I'll just give you one example. His rating going into the tournament, the published rating was 2778. And he faced opposition of whatever nature. He won. I mean, he played all 11 rounds. And he won 8 of them and drew 2. So he scored 10 out of 11, which is a stupendous tally. And then his performance was, I repeat, his against his rating of 27. That means 2700 plus 2. He performed at 2900 plus. This is, at that level, it's a phenomenal achievement. And if we say that he faced weaker opposition, again, make no mistake, forget the last round opponent. Otherwise, and I mean the first round, I mean the first 2 rounds and the last round. That means you take out 3 of his opposition. Like 3 of his opponents. In the remaining 8 rounds, he faced every player who was either rated 2, and the minimum was 2542, and the maximum was 2748. So that gives you the range. 2748 is huge. That means the guy is well inside the top 20 of the world. So he did have tremendous performances. I'm not taking away anything from him because he was so consistent, and that was one of the reasons which was later explained by Praggnanandha, because he didn't have a great form by his standards. He said on board number 1, I would see Gukesh hitting every day. On my left, I used to turn and look at, Arjun striking, his form. So he said I could relax a bit. And then he held a lot of top-rated opposition, all right. But he did say that, because of what Gukesh and Arjun did, it took a lot of pressure off Praggnanandha.
No, was it like a conscious strategy on the part of Praggnanandha and the team as such that he would sort of try and hold forth by pushing for draws? I mean, he drew most of his games, if I'm not mistaken. Was he consciously not looking to score wins, or was he not able to score wins and therefore drew? Yeah.
No. He's not that sort of a guy. It is just that he didn't get his kind of positions. He missed a few chances, and somehow he didn't look that sharp. That is again by his standard. Let me repeat that word, because for the simple reason, against his performance level of 2750, he still performed at 2713. He wasn't too low there. He just lost 1 match, played 10 matches, gave India 6 points, including 6 draws on the trot. So he had these 3 wins, 3 losses, 6 draws and 3 wins. But going by his standard, if you see, his draws also came against pretty strong opposition. It wasn't that it was easy for him and people were far lower rated. No, it wasn't that. He was playing his level, and of course he couldn't convert a lot of chances, and he was required to defend a lot, and he did so very well. So I'm giving a lot of credit to Prag as well, because he still had to play his role. Never easy, but the overall, when you compare it to what Arjun achieved or what Gukesh did, Prag in his own admission said that I'm disappointed with the way I played. He said, I got good positions sometimes, but yes, he wasn't happy with the outcome.
Right. Now, I was just curious. There are these reserve players one keeps reading about. Like, how does that work? We have like 4 matches. Then you have P. Harikrishna, who's the reserve player for the men, the opens. Then Tanya for the women. When did they play, and how does it work, the whole system?
Sampath, it's like this. When you enter the tournament, you have to give the players list. You just rate them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you submit the list, you can't change the order. Okay. So we gave it as Arjun on the top board, and then, Gukesh on the top board, followed by Prag, Arjun, Vidit, and Hari. Now what happens? Every time you want to give a break to a player, for example, a player loses, he's not in great shape to return the next day, you can take a break. He's given a break more often than not, unless he insists that he says, no, I just had 1 bad day, but I'm in good form. So you replace a player. So the reserve doesn't occupy his spot. Everybody moves up 1 spot. Suppose the top board doesn't play, then it becomes 2, 3, 4, 5 in that order. If board number 3, Arjun had to take a drop, then it would have been Gukesh, Prag, Vidit, and Hari. So Hari will only play on the last board. Gukesh, if he plays, he'll play only on the top board. All others can move up 1 place higher.
Okay. So how did Hari perform? Did he get a chance to play many rounds?
Hari played the first 2 rounds because Gukesh took a break. He didn't play the opening round, so Hari got in. Second round, Prag didn't play, so Hari again got another opportunity. And one more time that Hari played was when Vidit took a break in the 7th round. So he scored 2.5 bar 3. Which was a fine performance from him. Although when you play the first 2 rounds, obviously you don't play the top guys, so it was easy for Hari. So, but then Hari took a good draw in the 7th round. So that was his contribution, his main contribution to the whole thing.
And as for Tanya on the women's side.
Tanya also did reasonably well. She looked pretty solid to me every time I saw her games and all. Like Tanya also was undefeated, 3.5 bar 5. She had 2 wins and 3 draws. And when we talk of that lone draw of Hari, I'll just touch upon it. He drew. I mean, he was included in the match against China, and he drew that game. So Indians needed to hold on all the boards and win on at least one. And Gukesh pulled off a beauty that day. So the reserve players did their job. And reserves, interestingly, the two senior most players in the squad. The oldest player in the women's side is Tanya. The oldest in the men's side, I mean, the open section was Hari. And they both played least number of games. And still India won.
Right, and that's, I think, a very interesting statistic. I mean, the oldest players being the reserve players, and the top boards are occupied by all people who are very, very young. That's a speaks volumes about the future of chess
Absolutely.
in this country.
Yeah.
Now, coming to the women's competition, Rakesh, I mean, they had a pretty close sort of end. Towards the end, things became rather tight. They lost against Poland. Can you give a sense of how close was it for them towards the end, and about this loss which happened?
Very close, very close. I mean, they almost played with fire in the end, but then they showed their character. For the simple reason, the way they played that match. I remember the only match which they lost, as you said, against Poland in round 8, because that was the game when surprisingly Vaishali lost, and till the very end we could have won 2.5, 1.5, the same margin with which we lost. It was a dramatic change because Vantika was looked. I mean, she was in a completely winning position. Harika was minus, but her opponent gave her an opportunity to hold the position. And we were looking at a 2.5, 1.5 result in favor of India. But I think within a minute, it all changed. Vantika lost her advantage because she misplayed the position in a kind of a hurry. So she drew a winning game. Harika, which could have been a draw, she lost that game. So the swing of 1 point made us lose that point. And that was also the time, I mean, we still were ahead. We were still in the lead. But the problem was that, that we had to work a lot harder in the remaining rounds. So Indians were still in the lead, but then there were two, then Poland and Kazakhstan joined us after round 8, after that defeat. So suddenly, from being sole leaders for the first 7 rounds, we suddenly had company at the top. Then came that crucial round 9, where again we could have lost this. I mean, this was pretty close. Indians were up against USA, and this was where Vantika had to win after Harika lost, because Divya and Tanya lost. They drew with white. So suddenly the pressure was on on this girl Vantika. No, she's not supposed to. I mean, so far, nobody believed that she had that mental strength to take the pressure. But that day, Vantika was supreme, and to beat somebody like Irina Krush was phenomenal. And it was because of her victory that we stayed undefeated. Then came the last 2 rounds against, the way we played the last 2 rounds, especially the one against China. I think we were superlative in that match because we had to win it on demand, and we did that very well. We won that 1.5 with Divya Deshmukh, the girl in supreme form. She was the deciding factor. So the danger was averted by this time. So final round, our situation was very simple, that we didn't depend on any other result, although Kazakhstan was facing USA. But it was all left to India because Indians were joint leaders at that time with a far superior Bukhal's count at that point. But then Bukhal's can change very dramatically. But then we had the confidence that all we had to do is to win that match. And we did win it, and we won it in great style. That 3.5 half margin on the last day was stupendous, because that is what we expected the Indians to do. Both Divya and Vantika played to their form. And Harika, who was struggling to score a win, finally, she got a win to sign off with, and then on boards too, Vaishali drew. So women, they looked a bit in danger at the point when Vantika was playing that match against USA, because had that game ended in a draw, then it would have been very difficult, because that win for me changed the tide again in India's favor. Because if you were to pinpoint any time during the 11th time, it was when Harika lost after Divya and Tanya had drawn against US. That was the most dangerous period.
It's a tremendous achievement on the part of the women, no doubt, Rakesh. Thank you for the detailed taking us through how it worked out for them. But there are some concerns. People have been saying that while there is absolutely has any worries on the men's side, there are some concerns about whether there is enough of depth on the women's side of chess in India. There's the talk of need for greater promotion, talent search, all that kind of things. So what is your take? Is that a justified concern? Are we slightly not as strong on the women's side of chess as we are on the men's side?
It's absolutely right. We don't have that kind of those kind of players. The teenagers are not gate crashing into the top bracket. Vaishali, of course, looked very good a couple of years ago, and then she has lived up to her expectations. Divya has really bloomed, but I still feel the quality that you see on the men's side, that quality of players are not seen here. There has been all the grandmasters that you see are all coming from the men's section.
What is the reason for this? What do you think is the reason behind it?
Reason, obviously, there are men have more opportunities and they travel a lot and play, but very few women could actually do that. Now, if you look at somebody like Tanya Sachdev, despite playing the game for close to 30 years of international chess, she's been part of the Indian team right from the age group till now. So if you look at her rise of close to 3 decades, she's yet to become a grandmaster. She's still an international master. So it gives you an idea that in this country, we are still looking to take that number higher. We've just got 3 grandmasters now. Divya could become the 4th. So imagine there are just 3 women who are part of India's grandmasters club. So that is one reason. But then we are talking about talent here. I think we still don't have that quality coming forth. Whereas in the boys section, even if you leave out these 4 players, we can definitely have another team of 5 youngsters, which will be quite a handful. So you can't say the same about the girls here. But yes, the creamy layer is becoming thicker now. Earlier, it used to be only Humpy, Harika. For decades, it used to be the same. We did have Tanya during those days because Vijay Lakshmi was one solid player who couldn't quite, she served India for a long time. Even she couldn't become a grandmaster. So once she made way for the rest of the, youngsters to hold at least one spot for sure. So people like Tanya and all gained heavily. But thereafter, yes, women have been pretty, they have been pretty static up there. But yes, this time what we saw was on board number 3 and 4, the way these 2 girls played. 2 young girls rather, Divya and Vantika, which was very encouraging. Like last time around, we had Tanya and Bhakti doing quite well, but of course, Bhakti is not a youngster; she's a senior, and she lacks that consistency.
So you would say that with more amount of international exposures, one thing, and then maybe holding more international tournaments in India.
Not necessarily India. If these kids can get that kind of support, because a lot of quality tournaments are held outside, and you can make your norms, you can get that encouragement. See, a lot of India is also hosting a lot of international tournaments. The trouble is that a lot of people are scared of playing these tournaments.
But what international tournaments? We only hear of Tata Steel Chess. Like, what are the other big tournaments here?
No, Sampath, there are almost. If you see the calendar, there are at least. Close to close to 10 international grandmaster tournaments, which allows you to make norms in these tournaments. Most of these tournaments are won by foreigners, and they are not like top-notch people, because the creamy layer of Indians, they don't play in these events. The Indian grandmasters hardly show any interest, although lower-rated GMs are seen. So a lot of these people from Azerbaijan, Belarus, they come and play, and they do rather well.
Where do these tournaments happen? Because I think we don't really hear about them much because India stopped.
See, the Delhi International Open is one of the oldest. It has been held for more than 15 years. Chennai Open is a regular event. Bombay holds a regular event. Now Gujarat Open is a regular event. Bhubaneswar Open, which is the Orissa Open. So you do have these tournaments. It is just that people don't, this doesn't attract the best players because these are open tournaments. These are meant for players who are chasing norms. So, but the standard for an average Indian is pretty high out there. That's why a lot of grandmasters also are scared of coming and playing these tournaments, because if you play an untitled Indian, there is no guarantee that you're going to win, because the basic strength of an untitled Indian is also very, very high. So a lot of these Indians prefer to go out and play because the opposition outside is pretty low. It's not that high. But then because you're winning, you get those points, and there is hardly any fear of losing heavily. So that's why a lot of these grandmasters don't play in India. Yeah.
It's quite an amusing observation, if I may say so, Rakesh, to hear you say that Indians would rather play foreigners abroad rather than Indians in India. That, I think, is a very telling reflection of how strong
You got it
Indians
right.
have become.
Absolutely. And that is one of the reasons why a lot of stronger Indians don't play weaker Indians in this country. Higher rated Indians would not play against lower rated Indians because they fear that if they draw or if they don't win, they're going to lose heavy points. Heavily, they're going to lose. That's why you don't see a lot of Indians playing in the open events. A lot of top India, I mean, even if they are not in the top 10 of India, even if they are, say, ranked between 10 and 20 of 11 and 20 of India, they still don't play in India. Because those who are, say, about rated around, say, 200 points below them or even 100 and 150 points lower, they are not sure that they are going to win against those names. They are unknown names, but very strong, very, very strong with their basics and with the computers, with the advent of this. I think the preparation level of even those who are not international masters, because they prepare so well, because there's so many tools are available these days. There's a lot of input from grandmasters on various YouTube channels, and people are sharing a lot of information these days.
Like slightly on a tangent, Rakesh. I mean, how did Carlsen perform in the Olympiad? He was playing representing Norway, I believe. Like we didn't hear much about him on the headlines. Was
That
it like
is because his team
tournament?
didn't do well. Yeah, that is because his team wasn't expected to do so well. But make no mistake, Norway. I mean, he went back with the individual bronze medal on the top board. So I mean, he still did good. Although you didn't expect Carlsen's team to be among the top guns there, but he still played well. Of course, he lost one match. He lost to the man whom Gukesh beat later in the tournament. If you look at the team as such, I mean, they did have a very strong team.
But a bronze medal for
The
Carlsen,
individual,
isn't that like a bit of a subpar thing, like a individual
No,
bronze?
that is because of the performance. That is because the way he had to play. I mean, of course, he drew a few games which we all are aware of, but he didn't play so badly because he still managed to win a lot of games. He could have lost in the match against Iran, I remember, but he still, he showed his defensive skills. But then in Olympiads, you really don't expect him to walk away with the top prize because you still have to score heavily in the sense that, and he doesn't play like 10 rounds or something like that. And his performance rating, like Gukesh has scored something like, his rating is 3056, which is historic. No other player in the history of Olympiad has performed at this level on board one. So it gives you an idea of what kind of performance he had. And in comparison, Magnus Carlsen performed at 2810, 2800 plus, and Gukesh performed at 3000 plus. So that gives you the difference of this thing. And he had 2 draws and a loss. He scored 6/8, which in terms of percentage was quite okay for him. Also, the overall thing was, I mean, he was looking solid, no doubt. And Magnus Carlsen with those 8 points, because you have to play a minimum of 8 rounds to be considered. And his rating performance of 2810 is against his rating of 2832, which was 22 points lower. He still managed to get the bronze.
Right, and that's good to hear that he's still going strong. It's good for the sport as well. One last question, Rakesh, before we wrap up, we're just running out of time. So this has clearly been like a fantastic year for Indian chess, and it's still not over because in November we have Gukesh's World Championship match against
Yes.
Ding Liren of China. So one question which comes up here, you did mention when you were earlier, in your observations that the two top Chinese women's players skipped the Olympiad because they have a world championship match coming up. But Gukesh has played like almost 10 or 9 matches in the Olympiad back to back. So do you think that could have affected his preparation for the world title, which obviously for him holds a much greater significance? And also chess players, we know that they do tend to save their best preparations for title matches and so on. So how do you assess this, his going all guns blazing in the Olympiad just 2 months before his title match?
Gukesh he belongs to a very different breed. He and Arjun in particular, they don't need rest. This is what they've declared on so many occasions. They keep playing. And What Gukesh did here was that he wanted to represent the country, and that kept him going. It was not about saving himself or saving his energy for an event which was 2 months from. He's already started his preparation. His team is in place, and he has also said that he's already working for that match. What he probably did here was not to show his preparation, whatever that he has for Dingleren. He had to be careful. I mean, this is what everybody believed. And that is why in a lot of these games where people expected Gukesh to dominate from the opening, he wasn't better straight away from the opening. He played the waiting game. And because of his playing strength, because of his observation, the way he observes certain holes on the board, that is his best part. He just keeps that, which the computers will never show. The evaluation bar will never shift. He knows that these are the weaknesses of the opposition. So he plays around that and then exploits it late in the game. So as far as his opening preparation is concerned, because that is what the world wants to see, or even the Chinese camp would have loved to see. Same way, the team of Gukesh, his trainers, they were keeping an eye on what Dingleren was actually doing. And psychologically, I think it was a huge boost for Gukesh when Dingleren opted out of that match against India. That was a big surprise, because if he has come to play Olympiad, you are the world champion, and you take a drop in the biggest match of the tournament, he could have taken a break from the tournament itself. But he came and did not. Then against India, he didn't turn up because he was to play Gukesh. So that itself is a big thing for Gukesh on a very psychological plane. And give credit to Gukesh, because he didn't allow any sort of distraction or any excuse or anything which could have stopped him from performing at his best. And imagine, as I said, his performance level was over 3,000, and the world's strongest player hasn't crossed 2,890. I mean, it's yet to go to that level.
So on this subject, Rakesh, of Gukesh's upcoming World Championship, and Dingleren, as you said, withdrew from that match. How good an Olympiad did Dingleren have? He must have been on board number 1 for China, I'm guessing. Did he have a good outing?
Not really. You actually expected him to do a lot better, but just imagine, he played 8 games and did not win a single game. Now, how do you like that?
One must really, Indians would really love that. Yeah.
eight games played, and he returned with 7 losses and a draw. That was Dingleren for you. So after he lost the 6th round, the 7th round was against India. So he took a break there. Then he again took a break in round 8, came back and drew the next 3 rounds. And that was the end of the tournament for him. So a winless Dingleren against Gukesh, who had the best performance by any player in the Chess Olympiad. That should put things into perspective.
Right. I mean, that's definitely music to Indian ears for sure. I think a lot of us would be really hopeful and optimistic about the outcome in November, even though, of course, Dingleren, I think he didn't have a particularly great outing in the run-up to his previous championship match either, but he really did turn up and sort of win the title. So we'll have to wait and watch how that plays out. Thank you so much, Rakesh, for joining us. Thank you so much for your observations. Always a pleasure and a joy to listen to you and your insights.
Thanks a ton, Sampath.
Hope to have you back soon.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I loved being part of the show.
In Focus will be back soon with analysis of the biggest news issues. In the meantime, you can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and other platforms. Just search for In Focus by The Hindu. We'll see you soon.